What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here with the first official NFL power rankings of the 2021 NFL season. In this video, I will rank every team in the NFL from last to first, from number 32 to number 1. Free agency is basically over. We only have a few minor signings to go from now until September, until kickoff. So I wanted to let you know how I feel about your NFL team heading into the draft. These rankings aren't just based on my feelings. They are based on a specific set of criteria that I will be using throughout the 2021 NFL season to determine the best teams in the NFL. The way this criteria works is I ranked every single NFL team at every single position, from quarterback to coach, from the offensive line to the secondary. Every single one from number 1 to number 32. I then used a point system and added it up, giving me my list of the number 32 to number 1 team in the NFL. The quarterback position does have ×2 the points, and the coach has ×1.5, making sure that the balance still exists, that a team with a great quarterback and a great coach still has that advantage. So just letting you know, I'm trying to strip away all bias that I may have in ranking these NFL teams. Before I give you my list of the NFL power rankings after free agency, make sure that you do spike that like button and subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos just like this. Let's kick off the first power rankings of 2021 with the worst team in football, number 32, the Detroit Lions. The Lions simply have lost their 2 best players, Matthew Stafford, Kenny Golladay. Not to mention one of those players, Matthew Stafford, has been carrying this franchise on his back for the past decade. They have lost that player. And who is their quarterback now? Jared Goff. They don't have any elite players. Like zero. None. They have good players, but they don't rank above average at any position group. Any. And I am not sold on this new coaching staff, although it can't be worse than what it was. So Detroit, they are the worst team in football as far as I'm concerned right now. The number 31, or second worst team in football, is the Jacksonville Jags. Trevor Lawrence could be the savior, but when you look at the rest of this roster, while I think they had an awesome offseason, I thought they improved a lot of the aspects, a lot of the position groups, it still leaves a lot to be desired here. The offensive line needs some work, especially at tackle, I think. Tight end, I don't even know who it is. Okay? Pass rush could use some help. And I know they've spent a lot of picks in that area. Allen, Chason, I get it. I don't think anybody had over 4.5 sacks last year. That's concerning. I love the linebackers. The secondary, better, okay, but nothing special. So a lot like Detroit, they really don't have any position group that screams elite. And that's why they rank really low in terms of criteria. But if Trevor Lawrence is awesome and this coaching staff really gets the most out of these players in new systems and new schemes, then hey, maybe they're a lot better than we think. The number 30 team, or the third worst team in the NFL, is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles at one point, 2017 to be exact, when they won that Super Bowl, they won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. And no offense to Nick Foles, but that means you had a really damn good roster. Now, they simply do not. Don't get me wrong, offensive line, defensive line, still really good. Borderline elite in both aspects. They still have holes even in those areas. Like the offensive line, okay, is Dillard really the answer at left tackle? Do we really know what he is? The linebacking core in the front 7 is an utter disaster. Corner behind Slay, major question marks here. Wide receivers, just no proven talent at all. I like Jalen Hurts, but you're not going to rank him amongst the elite quarterbacks in the league, and he has potential, but is he really the true franchise quarterback? So the Eagles are certainly the least talented team in their own division and one of the least talented in the NFL. The number 29 team in the NFL is the New York Jets, Jets. I think what helps the Jets is their awesome front 7. I really do want to highlight this front seven because I think it is awesome. One of the most underrated, if not the most underrated in football, specifically the defensive line with the big men on the inside. They have layers of talent here. But elsewhere, I'm sorry, they don't really have any other talent. The wide receiving core I thought got better. Corey Davis, Keelan Cole, with some nice little additions there. No idea who the running back, Tevin Coleman, really, is he really the guy? Not that I really stress about running back. Offensive line, still not one of the best in the league. It's still one of the worst. They can improve there. Quarterback, we'll see. Okay, some potential. Sam Darnold's gone. New era coming through. And the secondary, don't even get me started. I love the safeties, but the corners, no idea. So the Jets, they've got aspects that I really love, but they also have aspects that I'm like, that's one of the worst, man. At number 28, the Cincinnati Bengals. I really wanted to rank the Bengals higher. I really did. I love Joe Burrow. I love the swagger. I love the confidence. And this guy just screams winner to me. So eventually the Bengals will be winners. But they need to put a team around this young man. The defense, I think, might have gotten slightly worse. Like, I'm concerned that they let walk Carl Lawson and William Jackson. Even though I liked Trey Hendrickson, I liked getting Mike Hilton and Chidobe Awuzie, I don't think that's an upgrade. Honestly, I don't. I'm sorry. The offensive line, Riley Reiff, solid addition. So slightly better, but still one of the worst in football. Love Joe Mixon. Love Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. They have too many holes. The offensive line, supreme weakness. Linebacking core, supreme weakness. Too many big-time holes. That's why Cincinnati is being held back right now. And Joe Burrow can only do so much. At number 27, the Chicago Bears. The Bears, like the Eagles, were one of the most talented rosters in football. And they still have aspects like that powerful, awesome D-line and edge group and front seven as a whole. Still awesome, still great, still elite. But the other aspects of the roster have dwindled, have deteriorated. The offensive line is okay, I guess. Borderline below average, I would say. The receiving core, not a lot of proven players, right? Allen Robinson is awesome, but Darnell Mooney, I like potential, but you can't really say he's great right now. David Montgomery, good player. Like, they have good players. Eddie Jackson's a really good safety, although he didn't play to it last year. But the secondary around him has gotten worse. Fuller's out the door. So the Bears just aren't what they used to be in terms of that roster talent. And I'd argue they've gotten worse at quarterback, going from Mitchell Trubisky, one of the worst starters in the NFL, to Andy Dalton, maybe the worst starter in the NFL. And I don't love the coaching either. So Chicago, I'm sorry. You just suck. At number 26, the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, I have no idea what they did this offseason. No idea. They got rid of their core of their team. That big, powerful, awesome offensive line. Trent Brown, Hudson, Jackson. Gone. See ya. The receiving core and the weapons. I think John Gruden has kind of done the most with not a lot there. I really don't see a ton of playmakers outside of Darren Waller. I think everyone else is kind of average, kind of replaceable, just okay. Derek Carr, just okay. The defense got better in the front seven. I actually like what they've done, adding a lot of depth, like a ton of depth to the front and that defensive line, specifically Yannick Ngakoue, the big addition. But the secondary, worse. They lost LaMarcus Joyner. They lost all their safeties. I don't know what's going on. So the Raiders, still a disaster of a defense, a worse offense on paper, and that means a worse team. At number 25, the Miami Dolphins. Now this shocked me. I am really surprised that Miami is this low according to my criteria. But I think it does tell you something about the Dolphins and would have me concerned if I'm a Dolphins fan at least. Because I think you look at 2020, and while it was an inspiring season, and what they did, they overachieved. They overachieved based on the talent they had on the field. They did that a year before as well. They did that twice in a row. And I think that speaks to Brian Flores, this coaching staff, and what they've been able to do, laying that foundation, laying that culture for the Miami Dolphins. But when you look at the roster and you go position by position, none of the positions are elite outside of maybe secondary, which I think ranked in my top 5. But other than that, front 7, average, right? Offensive line, arguably the worst, actually my worst offensive line in the league. And maybe they'll add to it in the draft, so it will change, and that's where my other rankings will change their ranking. But the offensive line have all the positions full, but they all suck. Like, I don't know what to say. The wide receiving core, better with Will Fuller. I like it, but still, okay, average, like not elite. The weapons just don't scream elite. And Tua is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. He is. I'm sorry. So if you have one of the worst quarterbacks, one of the worst offensive lines, and average everywhere other than secondary, that means you're going to be like the 25th best team according to criteria. You know, they would be closer to 15 on my list if it was just me ranking teams. But when you really look at it, it does tell you that 2020 might have been a little fluky based on the talent on paper. At number 24, the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta gets a little bit of a boost here because of Matt Ryan, who is the 11th quarterback ranked in the NFL according to me. But elsewhere, they really don't have a lot to be inspired by. Julio Jones is amazing. Calvin Ridley, incredible. Arguably the best receiving duo. I think it's the best receiving duo in football. I'm going to say that right now. The best. Weapons, top 10 because of them, basically alone. But offensive line is a disaster, bro. I don't even know who the center and the guard is. I don't. I can't tell you who they are without looking at their depth chart. The defense, I think it's a lot worse than we think, and it was bad last year. The corner position, a lot of young, unproven players. I'll give them a pass for that. Safety, they don't even have guys on their depth chart right now. Linebackers, really good. I actually really like that linebacker position, goes 3 deep. But the defensive line, you're counting on Dante Fowler to be your pass rusher. Grady Jarrett's amazing, but he needs help. So Atlanta, they just got hole. I don't know what to say. At number 23, the Carolina Panthers. Carolina, I like. I actually really like Carolina on paper. Now, they do have some areas to fix, and they're clear to me. And I think this is what held them back in the rankings. Okay, so they still have a below-average quarterback. That's number 1. Sam Darnold could improve on Teddy Bridgewater, but you're still not getting Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, or any of the elite quarterbacks in the league. Okay, you're not getting that. Offensive line stinks. Still, I love Taylor Moton, but everybody else is a little bit of a question. Center, pretty good there. Defensively, your secondary, can you fix it? Like, please. Other than Dante Jackson, who I think has upside, showed it last year, and Chin, who's awesome. The rest of the secondary is below average, like bench players, okay? Bench players. Improve it. The front 7 I love. I think it's super underrated right now heading into the draft. When you look at Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns and Brown in the middle, what they added there I think's awesome. And you got better at linebacker with Perryman. You got a little worse receiver with Samuel leaving, David Moore coming in. Dan Arnold was a nice little sneaky addition. CMC healthy, that's great. But this team has really awesome parts of it that I love. I love their playmakers. I love their front. But some of the aspects are like, make me cringe. So that's how you move up in my criteria. At number 22, I have the Houston Texans, which is shocking. I have no idea how the Houston Texans made it this high on my rankings. Like, no idea, bro. I can't even tell you. I think it's Deshaun Watson because quarterback gets 2 times the points. So if they have Deshaun Watson, like, that makes sense. Because if Deshaun Watson is there, which I don't know if he's going to be quite honest with you, then yes, they can be this good. They could be the 22nd best team. They could be maybe better than that. He's that damn good. But the rest of their team, if you took the quarterback away and put an average quarterback, you'd look at this team as the Lions level of bad, okay? even though I think they've gotten better, which speaks volumes to how bad they were last year. Like, I like what Nick Caserio has done. I think their secondary has improved, although it's still not fantastic. The front has improved depth-wise, even though I don't think they have any elite players, which is really the problem with Houston when you're ranking them next to other teams. They have lots of depth at a lot of positions, but they don't have any like all-star, superstar level players, which is concerning, right? Will Fuller leaving, I think, is a big loss, even though he's been a pain for many seasons for Texans fans. But the Texans, I like Caserio and what he's building, but he's still got such a long ways to go, man. He's got such a long ways to go, especially now with Deshaun Watson, whatever the heck that guy's doing. At number 21, the LA Chargers. Surprising to me, the Chargers are this low. Another team that I would have ranked a lot higher, but I think it speaks to maybe they're a little overhyped right now because I think they still have a little bit ways to go in certain areas. I think they have gotten worse up front, which is one of their areas where they were awesome like 2 seasons ago. Amazing. But Melvin Ingram is gone, and even if he were back, he's not really the same player he used to be. So you're missing that 1-2 punch with Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Even though Nwosu has an upside there, and you brought in Kyler Fackrell, who I think is an underrated little rotation player. The linebacker position's okay. Drew Tranquil, if he can stay healthy, might be a baller, but the front just isn't what it was. The secondary isn't what it was. Like, overall, the talent on defense isn't what it was. Real hope here is that the coach now can get the best out of this defense in a new defensive scheme, in a new change, which is going to be totally different. Like, the thing with the Chargers is I don't think they're going to be as talented as they were in 2018, but I think their coaching will be drastically better, even though I can't really reflect that in the rankings because their coach is a rookie, if that makes sense. Justin Herbert, he's amazing and he could be an elite quarterback this year, but like, how much better can he really be? The offensive line has improved. That's the one area you can notably say has improved. If they're going to be better than their ranking here, it's going to be because the coach and it's going to be because the quarterback, and not as much that they just have an amazing roster the way it was in 2018 and that little segment of time. At number 20, the Denver Broncos. I'm a little surprised the Broncos ranked ahead of the Chargers, but then again, I'm not surprised because when you look at each team's roster, right, one team has Justin Herbert, one team does not. But if you take away the quarterback, the Broncos are clearly more talented than the Chargers. Like, it's not really close. The Broncos have one of the best rosters in the NFL, point blank, period. They really do. Their front seven is one of the best in the league. Their secondary now is one of the best in the league with the additions they've made this offseason. The offensive line is better than people think because they've lost people to COVID, to injury over the past couple of years. It's going to be better, especially with that offensive line coach Munchak there. I like the coaching staff. It's well-rounded, right? You got Fangio, you got Munchak, as well Shermer as the offensive coordinator. So an offensive coach, a defensive coach, an offensive line coach that I really love. It's really the quarterback, guys, that they're missing. That's it. They remind me of the Bucs before they won the Super Bowl with Jameis Winston. They're a quarterback away. Really are. I love their receiving core. Arguably the best set of 4 receivers in the league, at least in the top 3, right? Judy, Sutton, Hamler, Patrick, and then you throw in Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon in the backfield. I mean, that's awesome. So the Broncos, I love their roster. Legitimately love it. But I don't love Drew Lock or the quarterback position at this moment in time. At number 19, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are a confusing one to me because, like, I want to give them the respect they deserve because they've been so good the last 2 years and they've been in the playoffs and they've been consistent as a franchise over the past really 5-ish years. But, like, they've lost certain players that I liked and they lost strengths to their team, like losing Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, I think are major losses. I look at losing both their coordinators over the past 2 seasons, Dean Pease and now Arthur Smith. I think that's a huge blow to their coaching staff, which used to be one of the best in the league. Now it's kind of average because it's unproven at the coordinator spot. The offensive line is pretty good. The defensive front seven has improved drastically this offseason. I'll give them a clap for that. But the secondary has taken a hit because of it. So they have clear holes, but they also have a reliability of saying they have Derrick Henry. I like Tannehill. I like A.J. Brown. I like what they've done up front. I like Mike Vrabel. So, it's a tug of war with the Titans at this moment. At number 18, the New York Giants. The Giants, if they can get great play out of Daniel Jones and this offensive line, this team will skyrocket this year. Legitimately skyrocket, because when you look at every other position, weapons, front, secondary, coaching, I think they're all at least average, okay? All at least average. They don't have a true pass rusher, which hurts their front seven. Their secondary is elite. I think they now have elite weapons. So they have elite areas of this team, and I think as a collective whole, their defense is top 10. So if Daniel Jones and this offensive line can leap 5 spots up in rankings and play better and be better, this team could win the division. This team might be near the top 10 here on these rankings, but they're not there at this moment. Daniel Jones is still around the 19th, 20th best quarterback, and the offensive line is still one of the worst in the league. And I expect if the offensive line improves, and now with the new weapons, to Daniel Jones to improve. But we've yet to see that. So the Giants, I like them. I love their potential, but you can understand why they're only this high on the list. At number 17, the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, I think, are smack dab still one of the most average teams in the NFL. Now, they do feature some elite talent that screams off the page. Budda Baker, Kyler Murray can be elite at the very least, even though he hasn't really truly shown it all the time. DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt can be elite. Chandler Jones, who's coming back this year. I like their linebacking core, but they do still have questions, right? They don't really have a tight end right now. Their offensive line still missing one or two pieces that you'd like to see them improve on, although I think it is an underrated O-line at this current moment. And then running back, they lost Kenyon Drake, which they don't really have that second reliable back that you would like to see. The defense, the secondary, is the biggest thing to note. The corner position needs major improvement. If that corner position could get a major improvement through the draft, then I'll look at this team a lot more and see the vision and see the cohesive whole. A big thing for me with teams is seeing the cohesive whole, knowing that they don't really have a true weakness. And if the Cardinals can improve the corner position, I'll be a lot higher on them heading into this year. At number 16, the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts were tough to rank, tough to rate, because I feel like they're one of those teams that has a solid roster, but they don't really have a lot of elite aspects to it, are okay, across the board. Quarterback, okay. Running backs and receivers, below average. Offensive line is great, their most elite unit, their best unit, top 10, but it lost their left tackle, so that's a huge question. The defense, they don't have any edge rushers, but I love the linebackers. I love the interior D-line. I like their secondary, but I don't love it. I love their coaching staff, but not as much as maybe the top 5 in the league. So the Colts are rather good or okay at every position. So that's why they rank as the 16th team on this list. At number 15, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers I'm a little bit lower on than I have been in the past. The Steelers do still have a pretty darn good defense across the board, although the secondary has many more concerns than they've had the past 2 seasons. I used to look at their secondary as a borderline top 10, 7 to 12 range in the league, and now they've fallen down the rankings because they don't have those proven commodities like they used to have. But the front 7 is still awesome, but not really the best anymore because they lost Bud Dupree. The offensive line is one of the worst in the league now just because we don't know. And I think that's the overall theme with the Steelers. There's still those known faces, reliable names, the Watts, the Haywards, the Bens, the Jujus. I like Claypool, Johnson. You go through their roster and you say, love this guy, like this guy, know what he is. But then there's certain aspects to them that we didn't see in the past where it's like, oh, I don't know what that's going to be like. I'm not sure. And those specifically are offensive line and secondary, which I think keeps them from being near the top 10 here. At number 14, the Washington football team. This one doesn't surprise me a lot due to the criteria. And I think if you didn't have the quarterback position ranked times 2 points, Washington would be a little bit higher on this list, I think. So really, Fitzpatrick's level of play will dictate the potential of this team, whether if they're just an 8-win team or if they're a 12-win team. But it does feel like they have a very good baseline because overall, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL outside of the quarterback. When you look at their playmakers, a lot of young ones, a lot of great ones. They brought in Curtis Samuel, Gibson in the backfield, Thomas, McLaurin. I like it. Offensive line, I think they're better than a lot of people think. I think they're around that top 10 territory. The defense, okay, front seven, I rank second in the league. Elite, you could argue the best. The secondary, I think's around the top 10. So they have a lot of really good areas, borderline elite areas of this roster, and the coaching is good. So Washington will be a solid team at the very least. But the question is, will they be a good to great team? And that really falls on Fitzpatrick. At number 13, the Seattle Seahawks. Now, this is a little bit of the opposite Washington football team. With Russell Wilson there, you know what the baseline is because he's Russell Wilson. But with the rest of the roster, you're like, they're okay. Like, I'd like to see them get a little bit better at corner, a little bit better at pass rusher. They're not what they used to be at linebacker. The offensive line's a little bit better. Like to see that. They have really good receivers. But there's just a team that they've been going all in, man. They've been going all in. And it just feels like this roster still isn't at all in stage. Like they're still grasping to fill the holes and the needs on their roster. And they haven't been able to do that. I don't know if that's a lack of drafting well, that's a lack of free agency pickups, what it is. But it really still feels like Russell Wilson or bust for the Seahawks. At number 12, the New Orleans Saints. I did not expect the Saints to be this high. Again, the Saints have had arguably the most talented roster in the NFL over the past 3 to 4 years, right? But the difference now is they had Drew Brees and maybe more depth, and now they don't. They've lost some of that depth on offense, on defense, and now they've gone from the proven commodity to the absolute joker in Jameis Winston. I have no idea what this guy's going to be. He could play 1 week like a top 5 quarterback and 1 week like a bottom 65 quarterback. I don't even know what to tell you about that guy. I will say that the offensive line, the defensive line, still the standout of this roster. I think the weapons are extremely overrated. Like they lost Jared Cook, they lost Emmanuel Sanders, which I don't think neither of them were fantastic for you, but they were proven, reliable secondary commodities. Michael Thomas is awesome when he plays, and Alvin Kamara is fantastic. But outside of that, there is a lack of proven playmakers on this roster, which might hold them back offensively, right? Their defense, the secondary, leaves a lot to be desired at corner. Losing Janoris Jenkins, I think, is a big loss. They've lost some defensive linemen. They lost some linebackers. So they used to be the best roster or the second best roster, and now they're still really good, propping up not as good of a quarterback. And that's why they're kind of around. Maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they don't. It kind of depends on Sean Payton, who's still one of the best coaches in the league. So they're one of the most interesting, fascinating teams of 2021. At number 11, the Minnesota Vikings. And if I'm being honest with you, I expected the Vikings fully to land inside the top 10. But there are areas that are holding them back. I think the offensive line is the biggest one of note. This offensive line is a disaster. Hopefully they improve it throughout the draft and land some big picks because they really need it. Like, they need to get better at protecting Kirk Cousins, who I think is sneakily a top 10 quarterback. I really do. Dalvin Cook's arguably the best back in the league. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, they have fantastic weaponry. I think Irv Smith's underrated at tight end. So they've got the playmakers. If they could get that offensive line, man, they would be a reliable top 5 offense. Right now, they're kind of outside of that because that offensive line can just collapse on itself. The defense, they need another pass rusher on the opposite side of Danielle Hunter, but that's not to say they still don't have an elite front 7, especially with those 2 big boys in the middle and their linebacking core. The secondary is average now. They've creeped back towards average, which I like, okay? It used to be one of the worst in the league last year. So Minnesota has improved. This roster is better than last year, and I expect this team to be better than last year. At number 10, this is shocking. Maybe this is like a Cowboys thing because like we always overrate their players. I don't know what it is, but the Cowboys are at number 10, okay? And I expected them fully to be somewhere closer to 20, okay? But they're at number 10, and that's what the criteria says, so I'm not going to hate on it. I think a big reason is because I rank their offense very highly. I love their offense. I think their offensive line is still borderline top 5. They've got a top 10 quarterback. They've got top 3 weaponry. They've got it all on offense. And I like their coaching staff now. I mean, Mike McCarthy's a good head coach. And then you have Kellen Moore, who I think's like outside of the elite play callers, but he's like the second tier of play callers. And then Dan Quinn's a major boost to their defensive philosophy and their defensive coaching. So I actually think their coaching is like not quite top 10, but like better than average. And then defensively, okay, I rank them a lot lower here, and this is where they fall. Okay. In the front, like aspects I like their linebackers. I like some of their edge players. I think Gregory could have a big year this year if he keeps his head on straight. Of course, DeMarcus Lawrence. They need to get better in the interior. The secondary is really the question. The secondary is the area they need to focus on in the draft. But I do see this as an underrated unit, and that's why I didn't dock them fully. I didn't dock them as one of the absolute worst, because when you look at what they've done this offseason, this free agency, they've added some players at safety that I like. You know, DeMonte KZ, Keanu Neal from Atlanta. They've actually already had a couple guys that I don't mind. And then the corner position's young but promising. Diggs, Lewis. So their secondary, if they could add a number 1 corner in the draft, I think I would be really high on them and their potential. So Dallas, yes, they don't have those players that you recognize from the past 3 to 4 years, but don't let that actually shy you away from this team still being really good. Like, they can make the playoffs. They can win this division, no doubt about it, especially considering they have the best quarterback in the division, and that really helps them a lot. Number 9 is the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens roster, I do believe, is overrated at this point, but that's not to say they still don't have really good areas of this football team. Lamar Jackson is a top 7 quarterback. The offensive line, I think, is being really underrated, especially if they keep Orlando Brown. I love the Kevin Zeitler addition. I think they're a top 10 offensive line. The secondary is top 5, no doubt about it, maybe top 2, 3 area. The coaching staff is one of the best in football across the board, from the head coach to the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, and so on. Baltimore always gets the best out of their players, and that made me boost their front a little bit. Even though they're a little unproven at the edge spot, Don Martindale just finds a way to get those guys better. A good team, but I don't see them as an elite team. There are areas that I'd like to see them get better at, like edge, like wide receiver. If they could do that, they might creep back up the rankings as an elite team in this league. At number 8, the San Francisco 49ers. I think if you stripped away the quarterback position, San Francisco would land in the top 5. But right now, the 49ers have an unproven, unreliable quarterback position. Jimmy Garoppolo is about the 22nd, somewhere in there, quarterback in the league. And if it's not Jimmy Garoppolo, it's a rookie. So we know that we can't rely on that right away. But everywhere else, guys, San Francisco's as elite as they've ever been. The secondary is still inside that top 12, top 10 area. The front is in the top 5, top 7. Of course, they've got a great pass rush. Fred Warner's an elite backer. Nick Bosa. The offensive line is an area I want to stress on. This offensive line could be an absolute monster force that just bullies people. Alex Mack thrown in the mix. I'm intrigued to see what they do at guard, whether that's Richburg or Brunskill or what they do there. They're playmakers, I think, most underrated group in the league. George Kittle's the best tight end for my money, and I love Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. Love those players. So they ranked highly for me. And of course, I love Kyle Shanahan. So San Francisco is going to make the playoffs, in my opinion, even with lackluster quarterback play. The quarterback will determine how elite, how successful, how high of a ceiling this roster possesses. At number 7, the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield leads the way for a very good offense, well-rounded offense. They have the second best group of weapons in football, from wide receiver to running back to tight end, depth and playmakers, elite players. Offensive line, I ranked as the best in football. Defensively, solid front 7. Could use another edge rusher, but solid nonetheless. I like the added depth. The secondary is an area they have massively improved, which really improved their biggest weakness with Troy Hill and John Johnson. So Cleveland, they are a lot more well-rounded than they were in 2020, which moves them into a space where I feel really good about the floor of this team. It's more about the ceiling. How great is Baker? Is Odell healthy? How good is this secondary? It's not really a question of will they be good. It's how good now with Cleveland. Here we go, the shocker of the video. Number 6, the New England Patriots. And now people are going to say, oh, your criteria this, criteria that, you're still biased. No, for Lenny, there is no Patriot bias going on here. The New England Patriots, if you take away quarterback, would have ranked inside the top 3. That is how strongly I believe in this roster. They have the best secondary in football. They have the best coaching staff in football. They have the second best offensive line in the league. They have an average group of weapons now, which is a lot more dynamic than what they had last year and a lot different than a lot of other teams, which was hard to rank, right? They have 2 top 10 tight ends. They have a solid group to 3 to 4, 5 receivers that I like, but I don't love. Their running backs are solid. Cam, I like, but the question is, can he play better this year? What is his ceiling? The defense, I think, is going to be phenomenal, guys. Phenomenal. They are going to destroy people. They are going to win games single-handedly. This front 7 might be the most underrated right now in the league. I know I said that about the Jets. Same thing exists here for New England in a different kind of way. They go 4-5 deep at edge with players that I like. This team's going to be really good. It's a matter of how good will Cam be at the helm. And if he is Cam, this team's going to be scary. They are. Trust, they're going to be scary. At number 5, entering the top 5, the Bills rank a spot ahead of the New England Patriots. That's how close I feel about these two teams this year. I think they're going to be really competitive inside that AFC East. The Bills really rank ahead of New England because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback. I love their coaching staff. Sean McDermott, Fraser, and Brian Daboll staying. That was huge. The offensive line, I think, is better than given credit for, right? They're top 15. They're reliable, but they're not fantastic. The defense, I don't think it's as good as it was 2 years ago. They showed that last year. The front's getting older. I don't love the interior. I think the linebackers are excellent, which made it very difficult for me to grade and judge this front 7 compared to the rest of the league. They need pass rushers. They need disruptors up there. The secondary is still top 10, but you see their flaws when they come out, right? Kansas City, they expose them in that AFC Championship game. They can't really play man. They're a very good zone team. So they have their areas that you're like, Buffalo could improve in a lot of areas, which is scary because they were so good last year despite their flaws. And I think a lot of that was due to their explosive ability, due to their margin for error, due to Josh Allen and this coaching staff. And they can improve just a little bit on those areas of weakness, and they'll be even better than last year. At number 4, the Los Angeles Rams, led by Matthew. Number 9, Stafford. The Rams are a top 4 team according to my criteria. Of course, they have elite players on defense. The best corner and the best defensive player in the league, Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. That's the foundation right there. So at a base level, they'll be decent on defense. It can only go up from there, even with the loss of the coordinator. All right. And I see there's unproven players there that people are going to say, I don't really know this guy. They don't stand out. But trust me, they've got some players in the wings that are coming up the ranks that are going to surprise you, are going to be better than you expect, and are going to be players that are going to play bigger roles that are going to play well. So defense might not be the best in the league, but it will still be good. The offensive line's underrated. They played really well last year. Yes, they lost Austin Blythe, but that scheme, the way they do things, the way they draw it up, that offensive line performs well with what they're asked to do, especially when it comes to run blocking. Speaking of running the football, Cam Akers is going to explode this year, going to be a big player this year. I love their weaponry. Deshaun Jackson added to the mix adds that deep threat, right? Van Jefferson's a nice little number 3 playmaker, route runner type, a lot like a Robert Woods, but younger. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, one of the top 3 to 4 receiving duos in football. Tyler Higbee, I'm a big fan. And of course, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay. This team is just well-rounded. One of the most well-rounded in football, which is why they're inside this top 5. Moving inside the top 3 with the number 3 team and the number 1 seed from the NFC a year ago, the MVP Aaron Rodgers, my number 1 quarterback, behind an offensive line that is not as good. Probably a bigger question than it's been in the past, losing Corey Linsley. Big question mark in the middle of that offensive line. But the front 7 with those elite players at edge, Rashawn Gary, the guy's coming on, okay? Zadarius Smith's awesome. Kenny Clark is fantastic. They have elite players in the front, which made me grade them above average. The secondary, above average, inside the top 10. The receiving core, Devontae Adams is amazing. I'd love to see them get a better number 2, but still, what they have isn't that bad. Aaron Jones at running back. They've got elite players everywhere. And that's the thing I love about the Packers. Even if they have some positions or some starters that I'm like, he's not ideal. Those elite players elevate the rest of the team. And that's why they're at number 3. At number 2, the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot like the Green Bay Packers, the Chiefs have a lot of elite players that elevate not so elite players. They have areas of their roster where you're like, who's their third corner, right? Are their linebackers any good? Who's their other edge rusher? Who's their left tackle, right tackle? But then you think, okay, they got Patrick Mahomes, they have Andy Reid, they have Tyrann Mathieu, they have Chris Jones, they have Frank Clark, who's capable of playing like an elite player, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, list goes on. I mean, they've got elite, top of the league players, top 100 players. And then they also have some solid depth players. I love bringing in Jarron Reed as an interior player there. That was a good move, right? Like a guy like Daniel Sorensen, underrated role player, right? A superstar in Snead at corner that is just rising. Just a star in the making. They have players that I really love. They have aspects that I think they should get better in the draft, and they should look to improve with veterans off the street, whether that's tackle, edge rusher, linebacker depth, corner depth. They can improve all those areas, and this is certainly not the end or the certain roster that we'll see week 1 for the Chiefs. But even now, with those questions, it's still amazing, and it's led by arguably the best quarterback and arguably the best coach. Number 1, by no surprise to nobody, I hope, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers rank significantly higher than any other team according to my criteria, and that's because they legitimately don't have a weakness. But it's not only that they don't have a weakness, they legitimately don't have a position that is not good. Like, not in the top 15. I don't even know if they have a position that's outside of the top 10. You go through quarterback, top 10. Okay? Weapons, 1. Offensive line, top 5. Defense, front 7, number 1. Secondary, top 10. Coaching, top 10. They legitimately do not have a position that I ranked that was outside the top 10, and I just did that live for you. The Bucs are that damn good. They are that damn talented, and they brought everybody back. There are like nitpicks, like, oh, who's their fourth safety? Who's their third linebacker? Who's their fourth edge rusher? But you're talking about depth, which other teams don't even possess. The starters across the board for Tampa Bay, the best starting group by a mile, and that's why they're number one. They're the best team in football right now, and it's not really close, guys. That's why they can repeat this year, but we'll see, we'll see. And we'll see how they improve in the draft. All right, guys, those are my first power rankings of 2021. If you enjoyed, spike that like button, and don't forget to comment your opinion in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.